Australia has gifted the world kangaroos Vegemite and some of the most brutal, beautiful, and utterly unforgettable cars ever to roll off a production line. These weren't imitations of European luxury or pale copies of American muscle. These were distinctly unapologetically Australian, built tough, built fast, and built with a level of passion that no boardroom in Stuttgart or Detroit could ever fully understand. Today we're counting down the 12 most iconic Australian luxury cars ever made, cars that defined generations, dominated racetracks, and in some cases became more valuable than the houses of the people who originally bought them. Buckle up, this is Australian automotive royalty. Number 121948 Holden FX48-215. Every great story has a beginning. Australia's begins here. The Holden FX, officially called the 48215, rolled out of the Elizabeth plant in South Australia in 1948 and changed everything. This was the first car designed and manufactured entirely in Australia, and Australians went absolutely mad for it. At a time when most families were still relying on pre-war imports, the FX felt like a declaration of independence. Australia could build its own car on its own terms for its own roads. It carried a 2.15-litre inline-six, producing around 60 horsepower, modest by today's standards but perfectly matched to the wide-open roads of post-war Australia. A preserved 1947 prototype sold at auction for $600,000 odd. That's not a car, that's a national treasure. Number 111962 Chrysler Valiant AP5. In 1962, Chrysler launched the Valiant onto Australian shores, and the local car scene was never quite the same. Built in Adelaide, the AP5 Valiant came with genuine American muscle DNA, a 225 cubic inch slant six, producing 145 horsepower, wrapped in a body that looked like it had been launched from a rocket. Australians loved it immediately. It didn't just compete with Holden Zek, it genuinely challenged it. The Valiant offered more options, better performance, and a driving character that felt exotic but accessible for families who wanted something a step above the ordinary. The AP5 delivered. It's the car that started Chrysler's long love affair with Australian roads, an affair that would eventually produce the legendary Charger. Number 101971 Valiant Charger E49. Speaking of the Charger, here it is, and it belongs in a class of its own. The 1971 Chrysler Valiant Charger E49 is one of the rarest and most ferocious cars ever built in this country. Under its bonnets at a triple carburetor Hemi 6-cylinder engine producing 302 horsepower from a 6-cylinder that wasn't a typo. Chrysler Australia's engineers extracted supercar performance from an engine configuration nobody believed could do it. The E49 was created specifically to homologate the Charger for Australian touring car racing. Only 149 road-going examples were ever produced today. Genuine E49 ISCOM and prices well north of $500,000 odd. 3 words made this car immortal: Hey Charger. The most famous 3 words in Australian automotive advertising history. Number 9 1967 Ford XR Falcon GT. If there is a single moment when Australian muscle cars were born, it is September 1967 when the Ford XR Falcon GT arrived. Ford needed a car that could win Bathurst. Their answer was the XR GT, fitted with a 4.7-litre V8 and a suspension tuned specifically for Australian conditions. It delivered. It became the car that forced Holden to respond, that triggered the great muscle car wars of the late 1960s and early 1970s, and that started a dynasty of performance Falcons that lasted 5 decades. Without the XR GT, there is no G, though Phase 3 without the G, though there is no Australian muscle car era as we know it. This is the car that lit the fuse. Number 8 1968 Holden HK Monaro GTS 327. Holden's answer to the XR Falcon GT arrived in 1968, and it arrived in style. The HK Monaro GTS 327 was Holden's first proper muscle car, a 2-door coupe with a Chevrolet-sourced 327 cubic inch V8, producing enough power to lock out the podium at Bathurst. That same year, the Monaro wasn't just fast, it was beautiful. Its long bonnet, sweeping roofline, and aggressive stance made it look like nothing else on Australian roads. Wheels magazine named it Car of the Year. Bathurst loved it, and Australians who had been patiently waiting for Holden to build something genuinely exciting bought it in droves. An icon was born on that racetrack in 1968, and it never really died. Number 7 1977 Holden Torana A 9X. If the Monaro was born to be beautiful, the Torana A 9X was born to win. The 1977 Holden Torana A 9X was Holden's ultimate racing weapon, a lightweight, aggressive hatchback fitted with a 5.0-litre V8 producing around 290 horsepower. It dominated Bathurst in 1977 and 1978, driven by the legendary Peter Brock and Colin Bond. It was fast, raw, and completely uncompromising, a race car that happened to have number plates surviving. A 9X hatchbacks have sold at Australian auction for $775,000 odd. Numbers alone don't explain that price. Number 6, 1985 AADTVK Commodore Group A. Peter Brock. Those two words carry more weight in Australian motorsport than any other. In 1985, Brock's AADT Special Vehicles collaborated with Holden to produce the VK Commodore Group A homologation special built to allow the race version to compete in Group A touring car. Events. The road car featured a destroked 4.9-liter V8 producing 196 kilowatts, finished in striking Formula Blue. Only 502 were made, one more than the required 500 due to a factory mix-up that became the stuff of legend. This wasn't just a fast car, this was Peter Brock's signature pressed into sheet metal. It's the closest thing Australian motoring ever produced to a hand-signed masterpiece. Number 5, 1971 Ford Falcon G. Though Phase 3 Australia's most famous car, full stop. The 1971 Ford Falcon G. Though Phase 3 was the fastest production sedan in the world when it rolled off the assembly line, powered by a 351 Cleveland V8 producing somewhere between 300 and 380 horsepower depending on who Ford was talking to at the time. It could cover the quarter mile in under 14 seconds. Its top speed exceeded 225 kilometers per hour. Then the newspapers got hold of it. The supercar scare of 1972, journalists screaming about 160-mile-per-hour cars on public streets killed the Phase 4 before it ever existed. That government and media pressure transformed the Phase 3 into an accidental legend. Production ended, demand exploded, and prices went stratospheric. Today, a genuine Phase 3 in good condition commands over $1 million at auction. There are Australians who would sooner sell their house. Number 4, 2002 Ford Falcon XR6 Turbo. Not every icon needs a V8. The 2002 Ford Falcon XR6 Turbo proved that emphatically when the Falcon arrived in 2002 carrying a turbocharged inline-six, the engine that would become known as the Barra. Automotive journalists didn't quite know what to think then. They drove it. 240 kilowatts rear-wheel drive and a turbocharged kick that made V8s look momentarily irrelevant. FPV took it further with the F6 Typhoon, pushing output to 310 kilowatts. The XR6 Turbo became something rare in Australian motoring, a genuine performance car that your mum would drive to the shops without complaint, and that would humble Commodore V8s on a back road without breaking a sweat. Engineering without ego, the Barra engine still has one of the most passionate aftermarket followings on Earth. Number 3, 1992 to 2017 HSV GTS. For 25 years, the HSV GTS was the benchmark for what an Australian performance luxury car could be. Starting in 1992 with a 200-kilowatt Holden V8, the GTS grew into something genuinely world-class over successive generations. By 2014, the Gen F GTS was producing 430 kilowatts from a supercharged Lasa V8, more than a BMW M5 of the same era. It came with magnetic ride control, suspension, Brembo brakes, and a hand-stitched leather interior that finally matched the mechanical brilliance underneath. Car and driver compared it favorably against European super sedans at half the price. That was the HSV GTS in a sentence: world-class performance, Australian price, Australian soul. Number 2, 2017 HSV GTS RW1, 299 units. That's all that exist, and every single one of them is worth a fortune. The 2017 HSV GTS RW1 was the final act of Australian car manufacturing, and Holden Special Vehicles went out swinging hard under the bonnet of this four-door sedan at a 6.2-liter supercharged LS9 V8, the same engine found in the Chevrolet Corvette ZR1, producing 474 kilowatts and 815 newton-meters of torque, 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 4.2 seconds, available only with a 6-speed manual gearbox. It was priced at $169,990 odd when new. 5 years later, examples were trading at over $500,000 odd. The W1 didn't just close the chapter on Australian car manufacturing. It burned the final page so spectacularly that nobody who witnessed it could ever forget. Number 1, 1971 Ford Falcon G. Though Phase 3, the legend that defines a nation. Wait, we already covered the Phase 3, so why is it here again at number 1? Because the G. Though Phase 3 isn't just a car on a list, it is the Australian car. It is the one vehicle that captures everything extraordinary about this country's automotive history: the ambition, the defiance, the raw performance, the political controversy, and the enduring obsession that turns ordinary people into collectors willing to spend 7 figures on a machine built half a century ago. No other car in Australian history sold for $1.15 million odd at auction. No other car triggered a national media panic. No other car was killed by its own government out of fear that it was simply too fast for public roads. The G. Though Phase 3 didn't just win Bathurst, it won a permanent place in the Australian national identity. That's not a car, that's a legend. From the humble effects that launched an industry to the Savage G, though that ended an era, Australian automotive history is a story of engineers, dreamers, and racers who refuse to accept second place. These 12 cars aren't just machines, they are chapters of who we are, built right here on our terms for our roads and for our love of going very, very fast. If your blood runs as thick as engine oil and you love the sound of an Australian V8 at full cry, smash that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Tell us which one of these legends would you want in your garage. We'll see you in the next one.